Combined with years of balanced literacy practices, the impact was clear. In 2022, just over 27% of our third graders were reading at or above grade level. That data was a call to action. We responded with urgency. Well before the state of Georgia mandated changes in the area of literacy instruction, Clark County School District launched a district-wide shift to the science of reading, grounded in research, structured instruction, and proven results. Our classrooms are transforming, and we already see the progress. But true change requires more than a new curriculum. It requires a culture shift. To make significant progress, we must surround children and families with literacy long before they enter our schools. That means building a community where books, stories, and joyful reading experiences are everywhere. That means working with groups that put books in children's hands, beginning at birth, constructing little free libraries and filling those that already exist, hosting literacy events and community readers at our schools, partnering with our public libraries to promote year-round activities, and providing families with tools like our Ready for Pre-K and Ready for Kindergarten activity books. And we are not doing this work alone. We are proud to partner with organizations such as Books for Keeps, the Get Comfortable Storytellers program, the University of Georgia's Office of Service Learning and the Mary Frances Early College of Education, and Malcolm Mitchell's Share the Magic Foundation, just to name a few. Together, we are extending our reach far beyond the classroom. With support from the Peach Education Tax Credit, we will expand these initiatives and measure our progress through kindergarten readiness and third grade reading scores. Our goals are bold. By 2029, 80% of our kindergartners will enter school ready to learn. And by 2029, 70% of our third graders will be reading at or above grade level. Because literacy is not just about decoding words. It is about confidence, communication, opportunity, and breaking cycles. When literacy becomes a shared community experience, everything changes. Together, we are lighting the way, building a culture of literacy for every child in Clark County. We invite you to join us on this journey.
Good morning, and thank you for being with us this morning. My name is Jennifer Scott, and I have the privilege of serving as the superintendent for the Clark County School District. Today, I want to share something with you that is near and dear to my heart. It's personal for me. It's also personal for our teachers and for every family in this school district. It is the story of CCSD and how we have transformed the way that we teach children how to read. This isn't just a presentation about test scores or curriculum adoption. It is the story of a fundamental shift in belief, a shift towards making sure every single student is a capable reader, that every single student in Athens has the chance to become a confident, literate adult. At the end of our time today, I'm going to ask you to be part of the writing of the next chapter of this story. Every meaningful change starts with a spark, a moment where you can't keep doing things the way you've always done them. For us, that spark came from a few different directions all around the same time. First, many of our educators and leaders listened to a podcast called Sold a Story, how teaching kids to read went wrong. It was a hard truth, a hard pill for us to swallow, because for decades, many school districts, including our own, were using reading instruction methods that simply weren't grounded in how the brain actually learns to read. That was an uncomfortable moment, but it was also the beginning of real change. Around the same time, we engaged with research from TNTP called Opportunity Myth. an in-depth study that we used for professional learning across our district. It confirmed something we suspected. Students were often capable of far more than we were providing them through assignments and instruction that they were receiving. And then the state of Georgia acted with House Bill 538, the Early Literacy Act, which set new expectations for how reading is taught statewide, and Senate Bill 48, strengthening how we identify and support students with dyslexia. Between the research, the advocacy, and the new state law, the message was clear. It was time for CCSD to change course, and we did. In 2023-2024, we rallied the team, because before you can change instruction in the classrooms, you have to bring your people together around a shared understanding of the problem. We started by conducting a full literacy audit and needs assessment across all of our elementary and middle schools. We needed an honest picture of where we stood. From January through May of 2023, our school leaders engaged in deep professional learning on the science of reading so that they, as leaders of our buildings, could lead shifts with real expertise. We identified intervention resources for both elementary and middle schools, restructured our extended learning time to support literacy intervention, and assessed every single student in grades 3 through 8. So we knew exactly where each child stood. We adopted new ELA resources for elementary aligned to the science of reading, and we offered optional summer professional learning to introduce teachers to this new approach. The mindset shift this year was simple but powerful. We had to acknowledge that the old way of doing things was not benefiting all students, and that shifting our instructional practices was going to require real, sustainable professional learning for most of our teachers. This takes humility, and our team showed up with it. In year one, with rallying the people, we shifted into year two, where we were proving that we could actually do it and earning the trust of our teachers along the way. We rolled out our new ELA curriculum bundle at the elementary level with intentionally modified pacing so teachers weren't overwhelmed. We backed the rollout with strong professional learning, frequent pulse checks, survey data, as well as PLCs and Q&A documents so that we had monthly sessions specifically for our instructional coaches that address the needs that they identified within their buildings. We committed to Tier 1 instruction for all students, meaning we drastically reduced the practice of pulling students with disabilities out of grade level instruction into separate lower level segments. Every child deserves access to grade level learning. We implemented a phonics intervention program at all of our middle schools and continued structured literacy professional learning for middle school teachers and leaders. We delivered with using outside consultants to support that work. We launched an RFP process to select a middle school ELA curriculum aligned to the science of reading, and we deepened our study of the opportunity myth with a particular focus on academic ownership, making sure our students were doing the thinking, not just watching teachers do it. The mindset shift here was this: a new resource has to be rolled out with fidelity when teachers are in the initial learning years of a new instructional model. And every student, regardless of label or starting point, deserves access to grade level instruction with appropriate scaffolds and support. By year 3, the question shifted from can we change to can we sustain this? Consistency is hard. It's tempting to chase the new next thing. We chose to stay focused instead. We rolled out our district literacy framework, our CCSD non-negotiables for high expectations, and our roadmap to success. Clear, shared expectations for what literacy instruction looks like in every classroom. We closely monitored the pacing of our elementary curriculum, Wit and Wisdom, and continued professional learning and coaching specific to that resource. Every elementary staff member completed training modules. We implemented what we called Learning Wednesdays, dedicated time for collaborative teacher learning, and we rolled out our new middle school ELA curriculum aligned to the science of reading. Our GLISSY literacy team developed a formal theory of action, which I'll share with you in just a moment. And across the district, we made it our explicit goal to build a genuine culture of literacy, not just a literacy program. The mindset shift here, we came to understand that our system of accountability is necessary to ensure consistency across every classroom, and that collective expertise, teachers learning together, produces far more growth than teachers working in isolation. So this past year, year 4, this is a year where we have deepened and expanded the work, moving from implementing a new approach to truly living a culture of literacy. We've continued our professional learning communities, focused on building the capacity of both leaders and teachers to internalize instruction and plan using high leverage strategies, not just following the script of a curriculum resource. We're implementing the new Georgia ELA standards and aligning our curriculum maps accordingly. We're expanding and reinforcing our culture of literacy district-wide while also providing some flexibility in how teachers use curriculum resources, honoring their professional autonomy and expertise as they've grown more skilled. And we continue to closely monitor our Tier 1 and intervention resources to measure real impact on student achievement. Our mindset has matured along with our practices. We now understand that standards should drive instruction, not the other way around. We recognize that literacy development isn't confined to the ELA classroom. It touches every subject and every part of a child's day. And critically, we've come to understand that aligned community partnerships are necessary. That last point is exactly why you are here today. I want to pause here and share with you the theory of action that was developed by our GLISSY literacy team. It captures the why behind everything I've just described. And it reads, if we believe that all students have a right to become proficient readers and writers who contribute positively to our community and beyond, then we must provide all students with a holistic, structured approach to literacy that encompasses reading, writing, speaking, and listening, culturally relevant and differentiated instruction to meet the diverse needs of students, and instruction that facilitates academic engagement. This theory of action is the foundation for everything you've heard thus far. It's not about a curriculum. It's about a conviction that every child in this community has a right to literacy and that it is our job collectively to make that right real. Now I'd like to turn things over to 2 guests who can speak to why this work matters far beyond our district, at the state level, and in terms of what the research tells us about early literacy and life outcomes. Ariana Weldon and Dr. Gary McGibney serve on the governing board of the Sandra Dill Center for Early Literacy. Using their expertise and knowledge, they have been instrumental in the Get Georgia Reading campaign. They will share with us why early literacy is one of the most powerful levers we have for student success and for the future of our community. So please join me in welcoming Ariane Weldon and Dr. Gary McGivney.
Good afternoon, good morning, good afternoon, good morning. Does this look familiar? That's the story on this kid right there. 17-year-old high school dropout. The numbers and files can't talk. But what if they could? And what if they told us we got the story wrong?
And the superintendent said, we have to think differently. We can't do things the same old way. So looking at this is kind of a challenge to all of us. Because we are, in our personal lives and professional lives, we are task-driven. We have our checklist, right? Audience participation's fine. You have a checklist, right? And at the end of the day, you look at your checklist, right? To see how many things you've checked off. And you probably have put something on there that you've already done just so you can check it off. We're so task-driven. And why? Because we get things done. You know, we have a lot to do. You have a lot to do. You want to get something done so you can get to something else. But when you do that, you're dealing with just the presenting problem, the problem that's in front of you. And the challenge is looking for the basic problem. And I can't tell you how many times I heard this. Well, Gary, I don't have time to look for the basic problem. I have too many things to do. And besides, we have, quote, solved this problem anyway. Not really. Really, what we've come up with is just a remedy. And you know what happens when all you're doing is coming up with remedies? You know what's next, right? The problems just keep coming back to you. And here's the insidious thing about it, is the problem may look different, but it's the same basic problem. So the challenge is to think differently, to be purpose-driven. You remember the book, The Purpose-Driven Life? Remember that? It was on the bestseller list for 2 or 3 years. It was so popular that everybody claimed they read it, even if they didn't. But if you did read that book, do you remember the first sentence in the book? Actually, the first sentence was really the theme for the entire book. The first sentence in The Purpose-Driven Life is this: it's not about you. And ladies and gentlemen, if we continue to be task-driven, it's about us. It's about us and our checklist. It's about us doing the same thing the same way over and over again, hoping for a different outcome. So the challenge is to look for the basic problem. And in doing that, with literacy, it required then us to rewrite the story of literacy in Georgia, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
More than a decade in Georgia, leaders across Georgia joined together to take on early literacy and rewrite our story. Here's where our story begins. Georgia has a long history of dedication to early childhood and education, and countless leaders were working hard to provide children with a strong foundation to help them reach their full potential. However, when this report came out in 2010, we realized Georgia was in trouble. 2/3 of our children were not reading proficiently by the end of 3rd grade. Why does this matter? Students who can't read proficiently by the end of 3rd grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of school compared to those who can. And this is why, after taking office in 2011, Governor Deal made 3rd grade reading his #1 education priority. The end of 3rd grade marks a turning point when children must shift from learning to read to reading to learn. Imagine it's your first day of 4th grade when more than half of the curriculum depends on your ability to read to learn any subject, including math or science. And without knowing how to read proficiently, you begin to go further and further behind, and then leads to not succeeding like that previous slide showed. But here's a really remarkable thing, and Georgia, I believe, is the only state that has done this at a population level. We actually know now that 3rd grade literacy is really a marker of quality of life and just one of the most significant effort factors. And here's how we know. Our partners at the Governor's Office of Student Achievement analyzed the 3rd grade reading scores and high school graduation rates of more than 98,000 students in Georgia. They found that there was almost a 30 percentage point difference between those who were reading proficiently and those who weren't. But not only that, the findings revealed a significant difference. This pattern held true. This pattern held true regardless of poverty, regardless of English learner status, regardless of disabilities, and regardless of race. What do you see on this slide? What do you see on this slide? It's about the same across, right. So that's where we call this our great equalizer analysis. So if we are able to achieve this particular predictor, it's a quality of life marker, is what it is. It held true for participating in ACT and SAT. It held true across the board for the same. So while everyone agreed early literacy was important and that 3rd grade reading was important, we didn't have a shared language. And we didn't have a shared understanding of what success looks like. Not just that particular indicator, but what would the conditions be? What are the conditions that we must create? Which is different than saying, what is it all children need? It's actually putting the light on all of us. What are the conditions we together must create? So that started with a new way of thinking. And this new way of thinking is founded in the field of epidemiology. And I bring this to you because it's something that everybody has an opportunity to employ. You didn't know you were going to take a class on epidemiology today, but I promise I'm not going to bore you. And unfortunately, most of us know a little bit more about epidemiology than we ever wanted to know because of what happened recently. But there are 3 basic tenets in epidemiology that I encourage all of you to apply in your work. Number 1, diseases don't occur by chance. There's always factors that influence a disease to occur. We may not know what they are, but there are always factors, which means you've got to always be on a journey. Number 2, not random. Diseases are not random. How do you feel when you think something's random? Like you might not even know where to start, right? We know they're not random. And the truth is we look for patterns of factors, and those patterns, it's the patterns where you see clues to inform solutions. The exact same thing is true for literacy. Literacy does not occur by chance. There are always factors that influence literacy to occur. It is not random, and there are patterns. And so you're going to see several slides with patterns on them today. All those patterns point to opportunities. and opportunities for partnership. Maybe a simpler way to say all of that is there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So the question was, we actually had to take a moment and step back and kind of put to the side what we kind of already knew. We really encourage everyone to always be on a journey and look for factors that influence literacy, because you're going to find things that might surprise you and that you have a new partnership. Some ways to think about this is to kind of suspend what you think you already know, because that also allows you to go deeper in your partnerships. That can be challenging for all of us, right? But it's really very exciting when you begin to learn new things and partner in new ways. So we discovered over a dozen factors, but there are many more. So I always encourage everybody to be an epidemiologist and keep looking. But starting with where everything starts. Family and adult literacy. Child literacy starts with family literacy. Regardless of income, strong maternal literacy significantly predicts child literacy and reduced challenging behavior. Children who are in family literacy programs achieve literacy gains at twice the rate of those who aren't. So that's a great partner to have, is those involved with family literacy, adult literacy, workforce development partners, which are really strong partners. Maternal health, birth outcomes. Women's health. Sometimes when I bring up the topic of women's health and early literacy, I kind of have to say, please hold on for just a second, give me a moment, because I'm going to help make that link for you. And you have really wonderful partners in this area. Actually, this whole community is incredible. You have so many tremendous partners and resources in Clark County. So women's health profoundly predicts birth outcomes. For example, the rate of preterm birth among women with hypertension and other cardiovascular diseases is nearly 4 to 5 times that of their peers. So why does this matter? At 35 weeks, an infant's brain weighs only 2/3 of what it will weigh just a few weeks later. That's powerful. An infant's brain grows an entire third in those last few weeks. 35 weeks doesn't seem like it's too early, but it's significantly early, and that's important to understand. Those last few weeks, the areas of the brain most closely related to language development and executive function, those are the areas that form. There are things that can be done that can help support that growth and make that difference, again, calling for partnerships. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because it's important to be able to kind of step back and look at the population in a different way. So here's a direct link between early literacy and birth outcomes. So this slide shows you a pattern. This is a pattern looking at the number of weeks of gestation at the time of birth and the percent below expected levels in reading, writing, and math at age 7. I don't know if this works. But so you can see it's a pretty stepwise progression. I want you to take this into account of where the trend is in Georgia. So in Georgia, for more than the last decade, our rate of preterm birth has been skyrocketing. It's something that's really hard to notice and realize that's happening, but it's really important. Then I want to help you by putting this together with other trends. So here's the birth rate in Georgia. So again, the opposite trajectory in that same time period. So I like to put these together because we have a lower rate of births and a much higher proportion of those who are born preterm. That's important to understand. And this is what this looks like in Clark County. So it's following the same trend, the percent preterm birth. It's just basically saying it's the same as the state, but sometimes it's helpful to see your own local data. Then we can carry this through. This trend, compared with students born at term, preterm birth, significantly connects to suspension, chronic absenteeism, and scoring below proficient in reading. This is not telling you, if you're an educator, it's not telling you that you have to go out and work with birth outcomes, but it certainly means what a great opportunity for partnering. Compared to their full-term peers, infants born preterm are 2 to 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health disorder in childhood and adolescence. We know that from plenty of longitudinal studies. So I know that there's a lot of efforts around mental and behavioral health happening at the same time. Guess what? Literacy is a protective factor for positive mental health development. So that's another really good thing to know, is that when you're improving literacy, you're also helping mental and behavioral health. And that risk, again, continues with each decreasing gestation week. Childcare access. Now, hopefully everybody here is familiar with something called quality rated and quality childcare. And that's something Georgia, I'm really proud in Georgia, we have really gone far on. So quality childcare has a significantly lasting benefit on social development, emotional regulation, and language development. Sometimes the trick is making sure that families are aware of and know about and are able to access quality childcare. Sometimes it's supporting our childcare centers and becoming quality rated. There's so many opportunities to be part of supporting quality rated. And access to quality childcare directly improves third grade rating outcomes. Language development and active engagement. So language development is the foundation for literacy. What is less known is that it's engagement through frequent language-rich social interactions with caregivers, educators, and peers is both the fuel and gauge of language development. So engagement first, and from engagement, language development will occur. So it's those positive engagement experiences. That's what we call language nutrition. And children who have difficulties with language development at age 5 are 4 times more likely to have reading difficulties, 3 times more likely to have mental health issues, and twice as likely to be unemployed as an adult. Again, addressing language and literacy is a positive quality of life factor. And when children don't have language, their behavior becomes their language. One thing I want to say about this slide is there's such an awesome opportunity to partner with our family and juvenile court judges. And I know that you have a wonderful family and juvenile court judge here in Clark County as well. And those can be some of the best partners in this work.
Another factor, preschool, 3rd grade out of school suspensions. Now, look at that slide for a moment, let that soak in a little bit. 3rd grade reading performance. Our partners at GOSUB analyzed the 3rd grade reading outcomes among children who were assigned out of school suspension anytime in their kindergarten through the 3rd grade, and found another significant pattern. Now that you're all amateur epidemiologists, you're looking for patterns, right? And here's where percentages can kind of mislead us, and we forget to look at numbers. So you look at that percentage, and then all of a sudden you look at the number, we're talking about almost 10,000 children. The percentage is bad enough, but when you actually look at the number, that's 10,000. What do you think the most common reason was for them to be suspended? Because we looked at it, we thought, well, why are they being suspended? You know, is it being disruptive? What type of behavior is it? What do you think the number one category It was other. You know what other is? Other, it means it's so insignificant, I can't even describe it. So we're suspending all these little kids out of school now. They're out of school for other behavior. So let's talk about some of the reasons why students are suspended. School climate is, ladies and gentlemen, school climate is foundational. There's some things that are just foundational. And put it in these terms, you know, when you go to work, if the climate there is negative, does that impact your work performance? Does that impact whether you really want to stay there? When you go to a restaurant or a store, how many restaurants do you pass to get to your favorite restaurant because the climate is a welcoming place? You remember Cheers, where everybody knows your name? That's connectedness. And why do we think schools are any different? If a child feels connected at school, they want to be there. If they're out for a couple of days and they come back, somebody says, "Are you okay? Do you feel okay?" And actually, they feel like they were missed. That applies to us, so why do we think it doesn't apply to schools? And this is a very important slide here. I just want to dwell on this just for a moment, because so much of working with our children in the school, we focus on what's wrong with them. What are they having problems with? How can we identify their issue? When many times it's us. Go into a classroom and watch how teachers interact with the students. And notice I said the word interact. Not talk to, not talk down, but interact. That's the teachers being developmental responsive. She or he is talking to the students at their level so they understand what they're expected to do, what they are doing, and what they can do. That's us. That's us. Even with our own children, we've got to shift our thinking into being developmental responsive to where they are and what their needs are, and not try to get them to conform to what we think is the best way without considering where they are developmentally. Because, you know, it says here, significantly and positive predicts students' active engagement, which in turn predicts greater literacy achievement in third grade. That's connectedness. That's feeling like they're part of the school. They feel like somebody cares about them. They feel like somebody understands them. And here's the other part, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody feels like they understand their potential and they need some encouragement. So how does third grade reading proficiency compare with the school climate rating? You know, in Georgia is one of the few and was the first state in the nation to require schools to have a school climate rating on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low and 5 being high. And it's based on student survey, teacher survey, parent input, discipline data, attendance of students and staff. All those elements go into calculation of the school climate rating. It's been studied locally in the state and nationally. But look at this. If you have a school that has a low school climate rating of 1, that's 16%. Compare that to a school climate rating of 5. Look at the difference. That's the climate. And with all due respect, you can talk about the science of reading all you want to, but if that climate in the school is negative, you're pushing a rock up a hill. That's why I said school climate is foundational. You walk into a school, you know, I can't tell you how many schools. At one time I was over 800 schools I had visited in Georgia and across the nation. And I walk into a school, I can take 10 steps in that school and pretty much tell you what the climate of the school is. You walk in the front door and you can smell the bathroom, that's a negative school climate. Promise you. How are you greeted in the front office? So how do you think kids feel? Do you think they're going to do their best if they don't feel safe and secure and welcomed and connected at the school? I mean, look at the data. This is what it's telling us. And it also applies to attendance. And in Georgia, across the nation, we've had attendance issues, especially after the pandemic. So in Georgia, we looked at the attendance, and here's the by grade level. And it says more than 15 days. You know, technically in Georgia, if it's 10% of the school year, which for a lot of school districts, this would be 18 days. But because of flexibility in the state law, some school districts can have fewer school days as long as they have the same number of hours of instruction. So that's why the 15 is listed here. But do you see, now that you're epidemiologists, you see any trends, any patterns? Why does attendance improve when you get to the third grade? Assessment. That's when school counts. You have parents, I've had parents tell me that missing 1 or 2 days of school per month is not too bad. They really think that. So when I was at the Department of Education, I was deputy state school superintendent, and we had a really good research department. In fact, Dennis Kramer, who now is at Johns Hopkins, did research, and I went to Dennis one day and I said, can we find out when is learning impacted? How many days do you have to be out before learning is impacted? He said, okay, we'll take that on. And he did a very complex study that has been replicated, and Ohio State University replicated it, so it has validity. And are you ready for this? Learning loss, significant learning loss, occurs after the 5th day. That's not consecutive. That's over the course of a school year. Learning loss is significant after the 5th day and exponentially after that. And yet we have parents, and even some of us, think missing 1 or 2 days per month is not bad. New way of thinking, like your superintendent's talking about. We have to think differently. Now, this is the percentage of the students who are absent, 6 to 15. Here's data, ladies and gentlemen, you will not see anywhere else. You will see data about those kids who are chronically absent, missing more than 18 days of school per year, and we're concerned about them. They're missing, 3, 4, 5 weeks or more of school, and we're concerned about them, and we should be. We're missing this area here. We're not even talking about the 6 to 15 days absent. Now, remember what I said earlier about the number of days? How many days does learning loss then kick in? 5. Now look at this. Look at the data. 50% are missing 6 to 15 days. Science or reading is essential, but they have to be there. And we're not looking at this. And here's what I've been telling school systems, and we talked about this when we were here with your leadership, and we're telling this to other school systems around the state. This is the sweet spot, so to speak. This is the area where you can make a difference. You can get these kids to improve their attendance, because the kids who are chronically absent, that's a more difficult dynamic. These kids in the 6 to 15, we can change this. Just think what you could do with literacy if you reduce this number in half. Just attendance. Just attendance. So as we said, absenteeism has a significant negative impact on learning after just 5 days. Kindergarten students who were absent more than 5 days scored over 20% lower in reading than their peers who were absent less than 5 days. And right now, more than 60% of students in Georgia are absent more than 5 days. We got to change the way we're thinking. If the school climate is positive, and if we pay more attention to the importance of attendance, especially in that 6 to 15 days, you can really move the needle on achievement. So the question came up, being the nerd that I am, is okay, what if we did improve attendance? What impact would it have? And look at this. This is just incredible too. A statewide 5% decrease in the number of students who are chronically absent would result in a 7.3% increase in third grade literacy statewide. If you put that in the context nationally, that would put Georgia in the top 10 just by improving attendance. And I know there's a lot of things related to attendance. A lot of that is awareness. A lot of it is access to health services. You know, we have children in rural areas that don't have access to dental care. They're not going to come to school with a toothache. So there's a lot that goes into attendance. I don't mean to sound like that's easy to address. But that area where we're missing that 6 to 15, and I'm being redundant intentionally, we can do something about that. So let's talk now about some health barriers that are also related to attendance and school climate.
Hi. Hi, Piper. How are you? Hi, can you see? Can you see? Yeah. Hi, honey.
Piper, hi.
Hi, honey. Can you see?
I think she.
So that's Piper. So vision. So vision significantly relates to literacy. 80% of learning occurs through visual tasks, right? So vision impairments are common. At least 25%, sometimes 25 to 35% of children have very common vision impairments, refractive errors. They are very common issues. And they can lead to both academic and behavioral issues if they're not noticed or not addressed or go uncorrected. So the concept of health barriers to learning, so that really refers to persistent, prevalent health conditions that when left unaddressed can interfere with a child's ability to learn. So I want to go back to that previous slide. To me, probably the most important word on this slide is the word common. So keep thinking in mind something that's common, it's persistent, and it's prevalent. So which means we know about these things. We actually don't really need to know, we know these things exist. So that's why not everything needs universal screening. But the idea of looking at vision and hearing, for example, is really helpful because you are going to see 25, 35, sometimes 45%. So it actually is a good, and they're pretty quick. Like nowadays, vision screening with some of the technology can be a minute per child. And those things can be addressed. So they only can be addressed if you know they exist. But they can be addressed, and especially in young children with vision problems, that can look like behavioral issues, and a child might not know they have a vision problem, and nobody else knows that they have a vision problem, and they're getting frustrated. That's a very common scenario, actually. It's a very common scenario related to literacy, but it's also a very common scenario related to office discipline referrals and other things like that. The same thing is that hearing issues, well, let me go back to vision real quick. So vision issues, that sort of far-sighted ability has been decreasing dramatically for many, many years. So people being nearsighted, right? So you can't really see as far. Now, it's not only because of screens, which is certainly a big part of it, but another part is even going outside to play, because when you go outside to play, you're actually forced to look ahead and look far. So You don't know that you're actually constantly strengthening your eyesight capability. So it means that it actually, while we're trying to figure out ways to protect vision development, it is worth doing the screening. The same thing is with hearing screening. So hearing issues are very prevalent. It can interfere with a lot as well. Uncontrolled asthma. That's another one where when we know somebody has asthma, having an asthma management plan on file and working that plan can really help. And it's very common in areas. It's very common in rural and more metro areas. And there's even opportunities to have like an asthma-friendly environment in childcares and in schools. Untreated dental problems, and I think Carrie mentioned that, it's very, very common. So really thinking about things that may be presenting themselves. Another area that I work in is chairing the Georgia's Match Committee, which is the very significant behavioral health issues for the state of Georgia. And even looking at some of these factors that may be very common among children with the most significant unmet behavioral health issues. Again, I'm trying to help you see the linkages by addressing underlying factors that influence literacy. You're actually helping to address other underlying other issues. And people who work in the mental and behavioral health space or people who work in the early childhood space, again, it's an opportunity. There's something for everyone to have a role. And food insecurity. Just recently, it was 1 in 4 families with children experiencing food insecurity. It is now 1 in 3. This is just really very concerning, and I know it's already impacting many school systems, even being able to have the direct certification. Some of our school systems may not even qualify for direct certification, not because families don't need it, but it's because of some of the issues that are happening with our regulatory changes. So understanding these issues is very significant in understanding underlying factors and your partners that are there to work together. And out-of-school learning. So participation in high-quality after-school and summer learning programs also has a significant contributing factor. Higher literacy, higher attendance, all of these things. So those are other additional partners. So really the message is that it's kind of easy to keep looking at literacy as simply an education issue, but it's really a systemic issue, right? It's a systemic issue. It's a systemic structural issue. It's a systemic operational issue. It's systemic across multiple factors. And system change doesn't occur overnight. So it's getting into this together for the long haul. Getting more kids to read takes more than good schools and more than great teachers and more than loving parents. It really does take all of us working together. And what we wanted to provide was an overview of a shared language and a framework for action. So these 4 pillars describe the conditions that we must create. They don't tell you how you have to do it. It doesn't say what the answers are. It's just saying what we're aiming towards. So like your North Star, right? It's where you want to get to. Let's walk through the definitions. So when we're in a community where all children are reading proficiently and all children are on a path to literacy, you will see all children experiencing abundant, positive, language-rich social interactions with caregivers, educators, and peers. Access. There's 2 parts to this definition. Number 1 is just a very quick summary that all children and their families, so we're thinking about 2-generation, multi-generation efforts, right, have access to and support for healthy development, emotional well-being, and educational achievement. So I introduced this rubric to you. It's really the 6 keys to access. When partners across Georgia were working to identify what are those conditions, and access kept coming up. Actually, the word access just kept coming up. So we finally decided we need to explore what does access mean. Because that word is used a lot. And we don't really think about, either it's there or it's not there, or it's free. Well, that's a really core component, or it's on the web. We actually went to people who study access, supply chain engineers who work worldwide, who helped us understand awareness is not that simple. You have to actually have the audience know that the resource exists, what the benefits are, and why it matters for them. So you're looking at supporting increased self-efficacy of someone. Like, is this even for me? So awareness is not as simple as it sounds. And then the other 5 keys to access. I have some friends in this room who have used this as a rubric for decision making and to drive action. I encourage you to do that. It's also used at the state level. Climate, clearly, again, foundational condition. So we would see that all children feel safe, nurtured, and engaged from the early years through the early grades. They learn and grow both emotionally and academically. And teacher preparation and effectiveness. I will tell you, this pillar was all by itself at the very beginning of this journey. 10, 12 years ago, it was just simply blaming teachers. That's really where we were. Some people are still there, but we're so far much further ahead now, thank goodness, that we need to support our teachers, and we all come together to the table. So this definition is pretty important, that it's all caregivers and educators, because our parents are teachers, right? Are equipped with evidence-informed skills to effectively engage all children through developmentally responsive practice. And you noticed, and Gary used this term earlier, the term developmentally responsive. Again, it's going a little deeper than developmentally appropriate. So developmentally appropriate might keep it at still as that child appropriate. Are they ready for us? Are we ready for them? So is the child school ready? Is the school ready for children? It's really helpful to think both ways, right? So when we're developmentally responsive, we would be attuned to where someone is and provide that environment. So the 4 pillars are really meant to be a shared language and framework. So you see with this framework, it really does call for a collective approach. Everybody has a role. And I just want to walk through a few examples. I think I have, 5 minutes? I don't want to, okay, thanks. Sorry for all the words on this slide. These are literally just a few examples of actions that advance the 4 pillars. So we have our Technical College System of Georgia is taking deep dives on family literacy efforts. And so again, partnering with your technical colleges is crucial. The establishment of the Sandra Dunnigan Deal Center for Early Language and Literacy really came out as a result of this work. And, what a legacy, really, a major support. Thank you to our library systems, multiple ways. Georgia's library systems, most of them have been going fines-free for the last several years, which now just seems like, oh yeah, of course. But it took a while, and it's important because you want to encourage that access and utilization, feeling like something is for you. And also things like lunch at the library. So I wanted to give that example. That seems like a small thing, but that was where, for the first time, we brought together Georgia's public library system with DCAL and DOE, Department of Early Care and Learning, and Department of Education, to look at opportunities to provide summer meals at library locations. So at the time, we had 0 libraries that were sites for where you delivered summer meals. And this has really grown thanks to the support of both the collective effort, even thinking about access in a different way. It may seem like a small thing, but making it possible to be population focused can get you so much further. Georgia's literacy plan is founded on the 4-pillar framework, so that's really quite exciting. DPH home visiting, which you have expanded, it happened in your area, and Clark County has DPH home visiting. This is prenatal through age 1. So you have your public health partners are supporting, and their work is helping to reduce preterm birth. It's helping reduce maternal mortality. There's so many great things through that work. decals to Gen Innovation Grants, so again, that work. And then language is a missing link, concepts and practices. I wanted to mention that, and I think they might have the notice tool in their packet. I just wanted you to have this one resource. It's a double-sided document, but it's called Notice Language Indicators of Well-Being. And the idea is looking at language development across a developmental progression. Georgia's new bill, House Bill 1193, requires a unified literacy plan. More to come on that. But I wanted to give you this as just one concrete example of a shared understanding across birth through high school. So if you notice that document, there are no age bands on it. None. So this is not looking at developmental milestones. This is looking at, you have to be attuned to where someone is to scaffold to support the next step. So we actually have been working with mental and behavioral health providers, the child welfare foster care system, on incorporating an understanding of language as a well-being indicator and using that kind of a tool. So that's a good opportunity to be able to look at something in a different way. I just wanted to mention that. Also, and I think I got a question about this last time, was that grade equalizer analysis that we were able to do. We're probably going to have that ready again in the fall with the updated data. My hypothesis is we're going to see an even stronger link because of ELA being a richer measure of a child's literacy outcomes as well. I don't want to keep reading through all these things. So I do want to give a shout out though, because I am chair of the board of the Sandra Deal Center. So the Sandra Deal Center also has community coalition grants and implementation research grants. Clark County received several of those. So I think currently the community coalition grants involves Bright Paths, and they're a great partner here in Clark County, and your health department as well, your health district. And then some other work happening. You mentioned Get Comfortable. That work has been supported as well. And finally, the Commission on Maternal and Infant Health just released their report, so you'll see more opportunities to partner. So in summary, together, we all identify and make sense of factors that affect literacy. We all can connect and support decision makers. We can use research and data to inform action, inspire collective action and innovation. And it's really important to celebrate your partner's successes. It is so important to supporting your collective community. And together, rewrite our story to improve childhood literacy. Thank you.
So we do want to say thank you to Ariana and Gary for this very informative presentation that they have provided. So let me shift back over. It definitely shines a light on why it's necessary for us to really think about the work that we do collectively as a community here in Athens. And so what we've just heard really is that we cannot do this alone as a school district, and that a true culture of literacy has to be a community effort. So again, I want to thank you for being here to support as we are moving towards a community of a culture of literacy. And that is why we're calling it Culture of Literacy, the next chapter. So we can build the systems, we can train the teachers, we can adopt the right curriculum, and we have done those things. But the culture and the belief that every child reads must be a part of what we do as a village that surrounds that child, and we do it together. So today I am inviting you to be a part of that next chapter. On the screen here, you have a QR code that will take you to a simple form that you can complete. that lets you know the opportunities that exist. You also have the form in front of you in the form of a card, but there are several ways that you can get involved. You can serve as a literacy mentor or tutor, supporting students through structured, evidence-based reading practices and aligned to the science of reading. You can serve on the Culture of Literacy Advisory Council, as Ariane shared. Then House Bill 1193 does require us to develop a literacy plan for the school district. And so we will be looking for representatives across stakeholder groups to serve and support that work. You can become an official named community partner, joining CCSD as a business, a nonprofit, a civic, or faith-based partner to support literacy events, campaigns, and school-based initiatives. You can support early literacy and kindergarten readiness by helping to expand access to books, language-rich environments, and early learning opportunities for our youngest families. You can donate through the Peach Education Tax Credit, redirecting a portion of your Georgia state tax liability directly to support CCSD literacy initiatives at no additional cost to you. You can simply provide books, materials, other in-kind supports. If you're part of a civic club, a social group, a homeowners association, or a community organization, you can invite someone from CCSD to come and speak to your group about culture of literacy. Or if you'd like to start small, you can host a small group yourself, a gathering of friends, so we can talk about how they might get involved too. So if none of these feel quite right to you, you also have an option of other, where you can actually list out and let us know how you feel your expertise and knowledge can be used to support this effort. So even if you're unsure of where you might land, I do encourage you to complete the form. Nothing that you put on there obligates you towards anything. It at least lets us know that this is an area that you're interested in, so that we can continue to provide you with information and help you better understand if this is the right fit for you. You also have an opportunity on that form to provide us with comments and questions associated with the information that you've heard today as we prepare to launch our Culture of Literacy website tomorrow. And with that, any of the comments and questions that you provide will help us know how we can provide information on that webpage that would be appropriate for what it is that you are seeking. So this is genuinely the next chapter of our story. And we've done the work to transform how we teach reading in our classrooms. Now we're asking you to help us in how we transform the culture that surrounds our students outside of school. And so before I close for today, I do want to say and recognize and thank our ELA curriculum team. We do have Dr. Christine Havens-Hafer, who supports our elementary ELA as the content coordinator. Ms. Shatana Williams, who is our ELA implementation specialist, and Ms. Carlin Bland, who is our secondary ELA coordinator, and they are the individuals that were instrumental in the shift that happened from moving from a balanced literacy approach to the structured literacy approach, and supporting with the implementation of all of the resources that came with that shift in the professional learning. I also want to say thank you to all of our building leaders who have joined us today to support as we are moving towards a culture of literacy, the next chapter. They have been very instrumental in the shifts that have happened within their buildings. Without them building their own knowledge and taking this on and being the voices within their buildings to support their teachers. If you know anything about teachers, they are creatures of habit. And when you come and tell them that we are uprooting everything that you know about how you've been teaching reading and we're shifting that, then that can be a huge culture shock. And so we relied very heavily upon our building leaders to lead that work, to support our teachers through that, and to do it in a way that helped them to build their capacity and their understanding so that they felt confident in what it was that we were asking them to do. And finally, I want to thank our district leadership team that's joined us today that have helped along the way as we have really thought about what does it look like to build a culture of literacy, but more importantly, how do we share this with our community? Because as you've heard, this is not just a school district issue, this is a community issue. And we are committed as a school district to doing the necessary work so that we can see the outcomes that every single student deserves here in Clark County. So I do want to thank you for being here. Thank you for caring about our children, for caring about our community, and for being willing and considering how you might be a part of this next chapter. So again, you have the QR code. Please take a moment to do that before you leave today or fill out that form. But you are welcome to stay to network and to engage with others who have joined us today. I know that some of you just came on your lunch break, and so we wanted to stay true to the time that we said we would take. So again, thank you.